Washington Post is always ahead of the trends, and great news recently with regard to the mobile site and so much more, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so why don't you talk to us? We've had panels from the buy side, sell side, we've talked about all sorts of advertising formats. What are some of your key takeaways?
From a political landscape, I see that there's definitely a lot of audience buying, and right now, as we were discussing earlier, I think the technology hasn't quite caught up to what the political landscape is trying to do, which is really to do audience guaranteed. And I think that right now they're challenged by basically reach and scale, and other advertisers and other brands coming in and buying up those impressions. And I think that in 2020, I guess we'll see a completely different strategy around buying, where they'll shift maybe direct buys to be kind of like a programmatic direct buy, and so being able to guarantee the audiences to the particular campaigns will be really interesting to see in 2020.
Great. So what do you think differentiates a really good, successful PMP strategy on behalf of a publisher from one that's not so successful?
Well, I mean, you definitely have to have a great conversation with the buyer. You want to make sure that your strategies align. If they're using their own data, you want to make sure you open it up as much as possible. You want to allow them to, usually we like to do floor price PMPs as opposed to fixed price, because that allows for, especially in the political space, an advertiser, if they need to do some sort of really a big buy over the weekend, or they need to get their message out in response to the other side's messaging, that it allows them to bid up and to win more impressions and more inventory on behalf of their clients.
Great. So Washington Post was one of the early adopters of header bidding. Mm-hmm. How has that helped you better understand the value of your inventory? And in turn, how have you communicated that to buyers so they understand what they need to bid in order to win the eyeballs they're looking for?
Sure. I mean, basically, header bidding has allowed us to see, it's no longer a race to the bottom. We've seen prices for impressions, I wouldn't say increase, I would say correct. If you will, because you're surfacing the true bids to the ad server so it can make those decisions. And we've actually seen prices that are higher than sometimes our standard rate card, which is great to see, because then we can have informed conversations with our direct sales team. And then in terms of communication with clients, we're very upfront. Here's where the average is clearing. If you want any scale, if you want any scaled inventory on our site, you're going to have to be bidding X or higher. And that changes and that fluctuates. So if we'll have buyers reach out to us and say, we're not seeing as many impressions as we were seeing a month ago, and we're pretty upfront saying, well, you need to actually, we've increased our auction pressure, more buyers are coming in, you need to raise your rates if you want to see more inventory. But we're completely transparent with that with our buyers.
Great. So one of the things that obviously the whole marketplace cares about is speed. Mm-hmm. The consumer cares about it. The publisher cares about it. The buyer wants to make sure that their ads are showing up in a reasonable time. How do you think in the future we'll be able to marry good consumer experiences and fast page load with ad-supported internet?
Sure. Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that publishers have spent a lot of time with viewability in the marketplace, making their sites better, removing bad ad units that are way down the page that load. Publishers have adopted strategies like smart loading or lazy loading, so that the ad doesn't load until it gets onto the page. Now that has happened, we're actually trying to champion kind of like a light and fast initiative with agencies and help their ads actually load faster, because publishers are responsible for making their sites as fast as possible and making the user experience of the site excellent. But then you have ads that are 5, 6, 7 megabytes, and they take 4 to 5 seconds to load. And I think that's really, it's not intentional, it's more of an education type thing. And so we're kind of working with agencies to show them this is how heavy or light this ad is, because you might have one advertiser whose ad loads extremely fast and another one that loads extremely slow, and the slower ads are actually dragging down the overall viewability of the site. And so we're trying to communicate that out to the agencies.